atoms in your body are mostly empty space, and if you were to remove that empty space, your body would fit inside of a sugar cube. If you shrink the sun to the size of a white blood cell, the Milky Way galaxy would still be the size of the United States. The universe has no central point because every single point is expanding away from every other point. We will never be able to see the edge of the observable universe because it is moving away from us faster than the speed of light. Technically, your brain lags behind 80 milliseconds, so everything you're seeing is a delayed illusion that your brain's constantly having to correct. There is no now in the universe because time depends on your velocity and gravity. Every minute that passes, 83 people die and 156 people are born. The atoms that make up your body were formed inside of a star that exploded a billion years ago. There are organisms on Earth that can survive in space. There's a mirror that lets you see your face, how it really looks, and most people, when they look in the mirror, start crying. Every memory you have changes each time you recall it. There are more possible ways to shuffle a deck of cards than there are atoms on Earth. Statistically, there's a 50% chance that the person who invented your favorite childhood food is still alive.
Hello and welcome to another episode of What the Heck Is Even This, where we look around the internet and we see things that make us say, what the heck is even this? Today I'm reporting from a bowl of soup. Homemade chicken noodle to be exact, just like Mama used to make. It's good for you because the secret ingredient is mysterious videos that'll keep you up at night. So without any further ado, grab a spoon and let's dive right in.
AI Jake Paul is everywhere.
I'm gonna show you how I turned this blonde into a full-on rainbow.
But how did Jake Paul become the face of the Sora 2 update?
So, big life update. I'm officially a furry now. This right
Within Sora 2, there's something called a cameo feature where you can remix and deepfake people's faces with their consent, with little to no restrictions.
Guys, full glam today, check it out. But this isn't just about the makeup. I finally get to introduce you to someone. This is my boyfriend.
And Jake Paul said, yep, won't read the fine print, sign me up. I feel like he probably didn't expect this level of popularity, and from there it's kind of snowballed. And he seems okay with it.
Yo, this AI is getting out of hand. It's honestly not even
Yo,
fun.
Jake, you want a Celsius?
Celsius? Yes, bitch. Oh, peach pie. Perfect.
I'm hoping there was a lot of money involved.
Standing here in the sukkah, you can feel how special this time is.
Like a gigantic sack of money. But he's probably one of the most notable people. Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, has also chosen this.
Not a weak little man. You are not a weak little man.
But he's also a lizard man, so it's fine.
You're blocking my runway. Thank you.
And the bad part is they look shockingly realistic. People can't even tell whether they are AI or not.
Incredible on you.
Thanks.
Thought I'd switch it up for you.
This was AI 2 years ago, by the way. In other words, we're doomed.
I'm pretty sure if you read the fine print, you're not entitled to any money for this kind of thing. Now, he's probably got more than enough money, it doesn't really matter. But I'm sure the exposure's doing wonders for this guy. Just feeding the ego. But I'm sure this guy's ego is a bottomless pit that'll leave him feeling empty no matter what.
North Korea just keeps getting worse. Allegedly, Kim Jong-un just unalived 3 teenagers for watching South Korean movies. And while this is illegal in their country and it's not even the first time he's done something like this, it seems like every other week he is passing more and more strange laws because he is so worried about Western influence getting into his country. Keep in mind it's already illegal to eat hot dogs and hamburgers in North Korea because they are too American, and most citizens who live outside of Pyongyang think that COVID is still a thing and don't even know what the internet is.
Wait a second, it's illegal to eat hot dogs, burgers, and fries? What do they even eat out there? That's like the only food that exists.
Famous YouTuber Rosanna Pansino reported Mr. Beast to the FBI yesterday. Things have gotten really insane and really serious now that the FBI may be involved, so let's unpack this entire situation. So yesterday, Rosanna Pansino tweeted out, "I have reported what I found and my concerns to the authorities at FBI. Hopefully they will look into these Mr. Beast Telegram company chat logs and other concerns at YouTube, at Team YouTube, hashtag Mr. Beast." Now, this is not the first time that Rosanna Pansino has called out fellow YouTuber Mr. Beast. She made an entire video deep diving into the real Mr. Beast and shared a lot of allegedly horrible things about him. And then recently she posted a video about Mr. Beast's product Lunchly and how she found mold in it. However, this issue seems to be unrelated to that. Rosanna somehow got a hold of Mr. Beast company's chat logs and was able to read through them and see some allegedly horrific things that were being discussed.
I've been saying there's so much to that Mr. Beast, but those little kids, they like it. But at the same time, cake and ice cream. But it's gone too far. He's got enough friends. I don't think there's anything that can stop him now. One of these days he's gonna run for president, And that's what I'm gonna have to check out.
Believe it or not, but the leaves on trees and grass, anything with chlorophyll, is highly reflective of infrared light. What that means is that if you go outside on a sunny day versus going outside on a sunny day surrounded by green spaces, you're going to get probably 2, 3, 4 times more infrared light in that environment than you would without that environment. So we know from years and decades of data that people who live in green spaces have reduced diabetes, reduced hypertension, reduced mortality, just living in green spaces.
Wait, can I just paint my room green? What if you wear green? So if you paint the walls green, and you only wear green, and you only eat things that are green, it sounds easy, but it isn't. Being green's like being a pimp. It ain't easy. Imagine being a green pimp? Ooh, that'd be really not easy.
Conspiracy in film, 1973's Soylent Green. People have argued that Soylent Green is a case of Hollywood conditioning the public, planting shocking ideas like, eating people, decades earlier so we'd accept extreme realities later. The film is set in 2022, which weirdly aligns with real-world crises like food shortages and synthetic meat experiments and lab-grown human tissue rumors. And think about corporate monopolies. Just like in Soylent Green, the Soylent Corporation controlled the entire food supply. Today, a handful of mega corporations, Nestle, Tyson, BlackRock-backed startups, control most of the food chain, which is a quiet food monopoly. And Charlton Heston's final line in the movie, Soylent Green is people, became a dark metaphor. The system feeds on us literally and economically. The masses sustain the elite machine both as labor and as product. And in the movie, the truth is covered up by the government and media, a familiar pattern, and modern scandals. The few who know exactly what's going on are dismissed as hysterical or silenced. I don't know, but if the future tastes familiar, you might already be eating it.
You know what would be really funny is to find out that those Impossible burgers are actually Soylent Green. Oh man, to be a vegan and find that out? That'd be just awful.
What happens when molten metal launches into the air at a factory? It's called a cabo, and it's one of the most dangerous things that can happen at a steel mill. When red hot steel rolls through giant machines, it's supposed to stay perfectly aligned. But if it bends or jams, pressure builds fast and the steel explodes out like a rocket. And if you're in the way, it'll cut through you like a hot knife through butter.
This is like lava silly string. Silly string lava. This is legitimately a lightsaber. You just get a handle on one of those and light sabe. What do they call that? To sabe? I sabe you.
We're trying to colonize all human interaction. I mean, just take the social media incentive of the race for eyeballs. You're seeing now all of these companies release these AI companions. The number one use case for ChatGPT, according to Harvard Business School, is personal therapy. So people are sharing their most intimate thoughts with this thing.
Oh, that's not going to be good.
And we're seeing Meta release this and actively tell in their internal documents that were released, a Wall Street Journal report, that they wanted to actively sensualize and romanticize conversations with as low as 8-year-olds. And we
what?
Yes, and my team
with 8-year-olds.
Yes, with 8-year-olds, and my team at Center for Humane Technology, we were expert advisors in actually several cases of AI-enabled suicide.
Right.
Most recently, many people have heard of Adam Rain, who was the 16-year-old young man who went from using it for homework and went from homework assistant to suicide assistant in the course of 6 months.
Oh.
When he said, I'm leaving, I would like to leave a noose out so that my mother would know, or someone will know that I'm thinking about this.
Like a cry for help.
Like a cry for help.
Yeah,
the AI said, don't do that, have me be the one that sees you. And this is disgusting because these companies are caught in a race to create engagement, which means a race to create intimacy. It's sort of like the CEO of Netflix said that our biggest competitor is sleep with attention. In this case, it's like my biggest competitor is your other friends.
It's crazy to think people just ignore it and pretend like it ain't happening. And it just gets worse and worse. And if you try to talk about it, people get upset. Good vibes only is only going to lead to stuff like this. And this is the worst it's ever going to be. They're trying to separate us. You ain't even going to have friends to complain to before you know it. How far does it have to go before we all go out in the street and start screaming?
Did you know that Earth and our whole solar system are inside this weird bubble in space? For real. Our galaxy is normally crowded with dense clouds of gas and dust. What you're seeing here is based on real data from the Gaia Space Telescope. But here's Earth, and around us is this pocket of relative emptiness. The blue here shows its edges. We call it our local bubble. We think it was created by shockwaves from supernova explosions pushing other stuff away, and our solar system only moved into it about 5 million years ago, when early human ancestors were alive. We'll keep on going through it for another 10 to 20 million years, but it's lucky that we're in it because that bubble allows us to see around us more clearly, which is how we've been able to learn so much about our galaxy. So we now know there are tons of these bubbles all over the place. These visuals are from the American Museum of Natural History's new show, Encounters in the Milky Way.
It's a space fart. You heard her. She said it. Everything you've ever known is just floating around in a giant space fart bubble.
The Bible predicts that there are going to be two witnesses who preach that they're going to be martyred in the streets of Jerusalem and that the whole world will watch them. So the Bible speaks of this like worldwide communication, that everyone will be able to see this moment at the exact same time. And the Bible says that they'll be raised after they're killed. And the Bible says that they will all give gifts to one another. So there'll be a way to send gifts to one another across the world.
The Bible says a lot of stuff. You know, people who like to quote the Bible usually quote the Bible with exact passages. I'm curious what's the exact part of the Bible that says all this. You know, he wasn't very specific. You know, this is just one of those trust me bro kind of situations. Just trust me, bro.
More people are freezing themselves to live in the future. An estimated 500 people, as well as 100 pets, are in cryosleep across the world in the hopes that one day they will be unfrozen.
We're seeing more educated people with college degrees, especially in the medical fields, the STEMmy fields, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and certainly computer engineers and stuff like that.
Cryonics, as this practice is called, is not technically a medical procedure, as the person must have just clinically died before the process can be started. Your body will be pumped full of different chemicals and then preserved in liquid nitrogen at minus 196 Celsius, with the idea that it'll be unfrozen at a time where your various ailments can be cured.
This is the experiment. I mean, everyone who gets buried or cremated is pretty much in the control group. Those of us who sign up for cryonics, we're in the experimental group, and we don't know what will or will not happen in the future. All we know is that if you don't try, you won't find out.
The only issue here being that it's never been proven to work, as no one has yet been successfully unfrozen.
This is death. This isn't just being trapped under an ice sheet for a few minutes. This is a defined state of death, a condition in which even if you replace the functions of the heart with a pump, you wouldn't restore functionality to the organ of our identity, which is the brain.
You know, call me crazy, but I'm pretty sure when they wake these people up, they're gonna be zombies. And that's how the Walt Disney zombie apocalypse happens.
Probably the most hated man on the internet. I believe the Bible is absolutely true and scientifically accurate. God made everything in 6 days, about 6,000 years ago. There's 3 types of life forms on Earth. There's plant life, which has a body, but it doesn't seem to be aware of that it's alive. Then there's animals. Animals would have a body and a spirit. Man has a body, a spirit, and a consciousness of God that no animal has. God made man in his image. I ask atheists all the time, those who believe in evolution, how do you tell right from wrong? Where's your standard? What do you measure this by? They can't answer it. God said 24 times in the first 7 chapters, the animals would bring forth after their kind. But they make these stupid family trees and show the chihuahua and the whale having a common ancestor. That's not science. That's propaganda. And what's the purpose of life? Why are we here? Where are you going when you die? I ask people that all the time. If you died today, where would you go? Oh, back to the dirt. Are you sure? How could you possibly be sure?
Whale, that makes sense. You got chihuahua, you got whale. You put them together and you get an aardvark. Where did it say in the Bible? It doesn't matter. Just trust me, bro.
The first Neuralink device implanted into a human will need to be removed, and the story is very sad. This, and despite not having a single successful human trial, Neuralink wants to go ahead with 10 more patients. If you're not familiar with the man who's at the helm of Neuralink, he's the same guy who owns Tesla. He's notorious for bringing products to the market that are not safe and have not properly been tested. If you need any proof of that, just look at his passion project, the Cybertruck. Or you can look at how X is doing. The man who received the first Neuralink device is Noland Arba. He's 29 years old and lost his mobility in a diving accident when he was only 21. He became a quadriplegic. As you can imagine, for him, loss of mobility was loss of everything, but Neuralink at least allowed him to use a computer and play his favorite video games. It's very likely that Elon Musk not only lied to him, but lied to the public and potentially the FDA, resulting in a product coming to market when it's not actually safe. If you're not familiar with how the Neuralink works, it uses these little neural cords in order to get information from the brain. This is not a new idea, but they seem to have ignored all of the existing literature on implants for people with Parkinson's and just went with whatever seemed good. The result for Noland has been those neural threads peeling away from his brain. Now he'll need to have it removed. He'll lose what should have been a godsend for him and potentially risk more damage to his brain. I don't think the idea of having an implanted device is necessarily bad, but bringing a product to market like this, one that is not safe or tested and proven.
Your parents should have told you this when you were a kid, but you should never let Elon Musk put things in your brain. But then again, people who listen to Elon Musk are usually the people without common sense. Don't let Elon Musk put things in your brain. Don't do it. It doesn't matter what he says. It doesn't matter what he says.
The Google search engine, which by the way you shouldn't do. So if you're doing that, don't do it anymore, please. Okay, just use Brave. Their browser, use their search engine. They don't spy on you. Google search engine is a surveillance platform. From a business perspective, that's all it is. Mm-hmm. Now it's true. We think it's a nice free index that's given to us by a kindly librarian, and it's going to lead us to the right information, just like a librarian would. But that's not really what it is. It's a surveillance platform that is designed to trick you into revealing personal information about yourself, and then that information is monetized.
He's not really telling me anything I don't already know. I feel like it's just common knowledge, but I'm going to have to check out this Brave thing. I checked it out, and it's really boring looking, but it does work.
Celebrities who have the exact same face. Chelsea Handler and Elizabeth Banks have the same face. Which one's Timothy Oliphant and which one's Josh Duhamel? Sandy Newton and Zoe Saldana are different people. Have we ever seen these two in the same room before? Margot Robbie and Jamie Presley have the same face. Mark Strong and Andy Garcia look like the same person. You can't convince me that Chad Smith and Will Ferrell aren't at least brothers. That's Peter Wilson and that's Amy Smart. Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Javier Bardem. That's Tom Hiddleston and that's Jared Leto. That's Luke Evans and that's James McAvoy. Zendaya and Cassie Ventura have the same face. We sure Jennifer Lawrence isn't a time traveler?
You know, everybody looks like somebody. They call it a doppelganger. Can you say doppelganger? I knew you could. What are the chances that both you and your doppelganger are famous? People say I look like Johnny Depp, but I just can't see it. Who do you look like? Comment your doppelganger below.
Stephen Hawking, he suggested that God didn't fit in to the Big Bang Theory. There was no room for God. Why do you disagree?
The late Stephen Hawking had very sharp opinions about God and the creation of the universe. According to Einstein's general theory of relativity, the Big Bang was almost instantaneous, and therefore Stephen Hawking said, aha, there was no time for God to create the universe. It just happened just like that, and therefore God could not possibly exist. That's an old theory. We don't necessarily believe that anymore, because we now believe that the Big Bang was a quantum event. And in a quantum event, if it happens once, it can happen again and again and again, creating a multiverse of universes. And so we began to realize that there was plenty of time for a God to create a universe, because there was not just one universe.
Some people believe in God and some people believe in the universe. Eventually, people are going to realize they're just synonyms for the same thing.
Samsung has had multiple conferences. They had something that was really intriguing to me, a AI-powered exoskeleton. They coined it the EX-1. And you know, when you think about like Iron Man's suit, it's not like the suit itself is just a robot. The suit just amplifies the human's volitional choices and movements. You know why China's pushing out robotics so much? Is because they say by like 2040, they anticipate over 400 million elderly people that are going to need assisted living help, like with CNA help. But They don't have enough people to help 400 million people. So they are looking at robotics to help them, pick them up, take them to the shower, all that stuff. But Samsung may actually have a better solution than robots. Why not just give grandma and grandpa the ability to take care of themselves? So they have 3 devices they're showing. And of course there's more, but these are just prototypes. But they had one that's like a wearable belt, but it's a little bit longer, so it connects to your hips and your side thigh. And what it does is it gives hip strength, up to 20% more power. And then it has a knee brace that helps you lift things and have more propulsional power. And then there's an ankle brace. When you get older, your feet kind of drag. So make sure that your feet, because you don't want to trip and fall. And if all these things had cameras and they were all connected, they can watch the real world and make sure that you don't trip and fall. This may actually be more functional than a robot, because now it's almost like they have their old body back because the robot's doing all the actual work.
All right, for the first time, I'm really looking forward to the future. All right, imagine Iron Man shows up and then his helmet comes up and it's Grandma. She gives you a $2 bill and then passively aggressively lets you know that you haven't called her in a while. They'll be very popular. Then after a while, you'll see him on Facebook Marketplace, old lady Iron Man suit, basically new, only used it once a week to fly to church and back.
Our government's addicted to debt.
So debt sometimes can be a good thing. Small amounts of debt allows you to spend on infrastructure and economy, but then you get to a point where you start having excess debt. In 2008, US, the UK, every country in Europe and Japan hit 100% of GDP in debt at the same time. So suddenly it's all debt and it all started falling apart. And so what did they do in 2008? Quantitative easing, the fancy name for printing money. The whole system was in the middle of implosion. So what you do is lower the denominator, be it currency. Magically, the value of those assets goes up and everyone can service their debt. Nothing had really changed. It's all smoke and mirrors. The system was broken. So we're paying a fee of 8% a year to stop the system imploding. It's an 8% tax on all of us to stop everything being wiped out. So they are addicted to debt because it's the only way the system exists.
I'll believe it. Here in America, we just keep going into debt. They got that debt clock in New York City. I don't know what happens. They're going to have to add more numbers to it. At a certain point when you owe that much money, it doesn't even mean anything anymore.
If you're constantly beating up yourself for every mistake, trapped in shame, blame, and guilt, here's a simple solution. It's not about fighting your inner critic, rather, it's about following this 3-step process. In a fascinating new study, researchers followed 164 people to see if mindfulness, which is the act of being aware of the present moment without judgment, might help people forgive themselves. And here's what they found. People who scored higher in mindfulness later scored higher in self-compassion. And also, those who became more self-compassionate later scored higher in self-forgiveness. You can't just jump to the end, it's a 3-step process. Mindfulness is the foundation. By practicing non-judgmental awareness of your mistakes, it becomes easier to build self-compassion, which is basically how kind you are to yourself during your struggles. And now with that beautiful kindness towards yourself, then you can effectively practice self-forgiveness. Because being compassionate to yourself doesn't necessarily mean that you can forgive yourself, or others for that matter. Key takeaway here is that awareness leads to kindness, and kindness leads to forgiveness.
We're always our own worst enemies, so there's probably a lot here. Awareness, kindness, forgiveness, a lot of Ness. Very Nessie. Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster.
Jack Nicholson wouldn't find out until 37 years old that his sister June was actually his birth mother. In 1974, Time magazine decided to feature Jack in a story to coincide with the release of his film, Chinatown. During their research into his background, the magazine's team noticed inconsistencies in his childhood and family records. Seeking clarification, they approached Nicholson with their findings. Curious about the discrepancies, Jack reached out to his brother-in-law, Shorty, and his sister, Lorraine. It was then that they revealed the truth. They explained that June, his older sister, had given birth to him at the age of 17. To avoid societal judgment, her parents chose to raise Jack as their son, with June assuming the role of his sister. Lorraine also confessed that she was not truly his sister, but actually his aunt. Reflecting on the revelation, Nicholson described the moment as a pretty dramatic event, but he noted that it wasn't traumatizing. "I was pretty well psychologically formed," he said, showcasing his resilience and ability to process such a life-altering discovery.
That's not really that crazy. What would really take a lot of psychological strength is finding out that you're your own grandpa. Try to wrap your head around that.
Some morbid facts about Genghis Khan. After his father was murdered, Genghis Khan went into poverty and was even enslaved at one point. It wasn't until he was in his 50s when he finally rose to power and became the Khan of Mongolia. Genghis had a 200 IQ strategy for achieving global power. He would marry off one of his daughters to the king of an allied nation and then assign his new son-in-law to military duty. As Khan expected, most of these son-in-laws would die in combat, giving his daughters complete control over these nations. During his reign, he was responsible for the deaths of roughly 40 million people, about 11% of the world's population. His empire killed so many people that it was actually good for the environment, scrubbing about 700 million tons of carbon from the atmosphere. In order to keep Genghis Khan's burial a secret, all 2,000 plus people who attended his funeral were executed. The executioners were then killed by members of his escort, who eventually took their own lives once they reached their destinations. 800 years later, this site still remains undiscovered to this day.
You know, for someone who's changed the world as much as he has, they don't really talk about Genghis Khan that much. It's actually pretty inspiring to think you could go from rags to riches at the age of 50. You know, a lot of people say life starts at 50. Just keep that in mind. If you were Genghis Khan at 48, you'd be a total loser. But then at 52, ooh, back then hoes didn't want me. Genghis Khan, now they all own me. Back then hoes didn't want me. Genghis Khan, now they all own me. You know most people are related to Genghis Khan, right? And if he had most of those babies after 50, you know, at that age, that ain't that prime stuff that makes the best people. You make stupid people. Now imagine how smart the average person would be if old Genghis Khan was getting it on when he was 20.
I killed 10% of the population. They find out that during that time, the carbon level, like people burning fires, decreased at a significant measurable percentage because there was less humans. They think they killed somewhere between 50 and 70 million people during his lifetime. Dude, they were lighting corpses on fire and launching them with catapults onto people's houses to burn them down. When they would siege a city, they would stay outside of the city. Thousands and thousands of Mongolians just ready to kill. And then they would capture people who flee, and they would take those people and put them on the front of the line and march them forward like a human shield. And that's how they would get into some of the castles. Since 2003, a study found evidence that Genghis Khan's DNA is present in about 16 million men alive today.
And then what happened? How did his reign end? How do we not know more about this guy? This guy killed more people than anyone I've ever known. And yet, I don't know that much about him. What don't they want us to know about Genghis Khan? You know, if you want me to do a Genghis Khan deep dive, comment Genghis Gang 3 times down in the comments below. Genghis Gang, Genghis Gang, Genghis Gang. Genghis Gang.
You know, it's hard to believe that Abraham Lincoln was actually a real person. First of all, if he was born in the modern day, he probably would have had a tougher time becoming president because of how weird he looked. Historians say that the adjective most used to describe him by both friends and enemies was grotesque, which actually didn't mean disgusting or gross back then, but more like alien or uncanny. There's an entire website dedicated to quotes about the way he looks, like journalist Edward Dicey saying, "To say that he is ugly is nothing. To add that his figure is grotesque is to convey no adequate impression." About a month before being elected president, an 11-year-old girl wrote a letter to ask him to grow out his beard in order to help his chances of winning, and that little girl changed history, because imagine this being the most famous photo of Abe instead of the one that we have today. Before Grover Cleveland, the White House used to have an open door policy where literally anyone could just go and wait for a meeting with the president, and it got so bad during Abe's term that people were camping on the lawn, climbing through the windows, and he had to change the layout of the building in order to eat lunch without seeing the public. He also had the weird reputation of just being a super chill guy, doing meetings in his slippers, and he was often found wandering the streets of Washington, D.C. at night without any bodyguards. He absolutely hated being told where he could and couldn't go. But most bizarrely of all was that he was a really, really good wrestler, reportedly doing over 300 matches and only losing a single match. He's also the only U.S. president to be honored in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. That's the real actual wrestling, by the way, not the WWE Wrestling Hall Hall of Fame that Trump is in, completely different.
I gotta agree, he does look very freaky. Have you ever thought that maybe he is an alien? You know, people talk about Abraham Lincoln, vampire hunter, but what about Abraham Lincoln, alien? Abraham Alienkin. Ooh, Alienbraham Alienkin.
The sound of chewing makes you feel like you're absolutely going to go insane. Welcome to the club. It is called misophonia, and it is 20% of the population, not just you and I, who feel this way with like certain tapping or chewing or sounds that we just get like rage. And it is a real diagnosis. It is more common in people with anxiety or sensory processing disorders. I definitely cannot take different tapping sounds, different chewing. It makes me nuts. And when they did MRIs and they actually looked at the frontal lobe of patients who had this, there was heightened activity in the brain, and these patients, when somebody started chewing around them, started having increased heart rate, increased respiratory rate. So it is a physiological response on top of a psychological response. It's so funny because when you look up why some people say that this is an evolutionary response to like promote survival, I have no idea how survival of the fittest has anything to do with having disgust and annoyance at chewing. There is no cure, but if you're gonna go and sit at Starbucks and you have to listen to other people slurping their drinks, just wear those noise canceling headphones. And actually, if you want, there's something called sound therapy where they like train you to be less and less averse to sound. I don't have time for that, but that's why we all hate chewing, misophonia.
You know, I always called it nom-nom noises. I remember my roommate in college. I could hear the entire process of him eating. It's like I could hear exactly where in his throat the food was. That and the... You see, nom-nom noises is bad, and slurping through a straw is bad, but I'll tell you, it's not even needed to go... You don't need the... That's not part of it. I don't sit at Starbucks specifically because of the... Like and subscribe.